Welcome to the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals here in Barletta, Italy. Loads to look forward to this afternoon as we've got the last 16 and then the last 8. So the last 16, the pre-quarter final races for the doubles through the morning, and then we're into some of the solos for the under-19s and the mixed 4 and the mixed double, the last 8 where the medals are awarded through the course of the afternoon. Loads to look forward to, and in just a moment we're going to catch up with the first of the racing, but we've got a few explainers about what it's like to be here in Barletta first.
I am here with Gwyn Batten, Chair of the Coastal Rowing Commission. Gwyn, we're in Barletta, Italy. What an amazing place to be.
Oh, it's so beautiful, and we've had the amazing sunsets, and the sea's just been wonderful today.
So we're here for the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Tell us, what are beach sprints all about?
So beach sprints is all about speed, stamina, agility, understanding the sea. But in essence, what you do is you run down the beach, you jump into the boat, you row 250 meters out to sea, turn hard right or hard left, I can't remember which, depending on which way you're facing, straight back to the beach, jump out the boat, up the beach, and hit that buzzer.
I think that's the amazing thing about this sport. It's so exciting, particularly for all the spectators watching.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things is you could be the favorite, but there's so many chances of making mistakes. The jeopardy is incredibly high. So until someone's crossed the line, you really don't know who's going to win.
So there's an exciting future ahead for the sport. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the coastal rowing as a discipline's been around for quite a while, but we've come closer and closer to the beach, and we have a new format to sit alongside the endurance format, which is beach sprints. We first started in 2015, and quite recently, and we're waiting to see whether or not we have a decision made for Los Angeles to be part of the Olympics. But you never know.
You never know, but we hope it will be there anyway. So tell us about, we're in beautiful Barletta. We've seen changing conditions here. It can be flat 1 minute, it can get quite choppy the next, but again, that's all just part of the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That ability to change and adapt is so important. This morning we had, you know, beautiful, calm conditions, and then this evening, as the land wind picked up, we started to get real turning, dynamic conditions where people were ending up being spun out and facing the wrong way. Really exciting for the spectators. Huge amount of skill for the rowers themselves, yeah.
And I know we're going to have an exciting few days ahead. So it is back to Pete now, who's going to be telling us all about the different types of boats.
Hello, we're here in Barletta, Italy for the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. I'm standing here right on the start and finish line of the 500-meter course. 2 buzzers in the sand, and what happens through the course is the starting umpire will press the klaxon, they will set off down the course, and when they come back, they hit this buzzer to get started on the race. But I'm going to take you through some of the technical details that make these boats specifically fine-tuned for beach sprint racing. We're stood here with a coastal rowing quad. It's 10.5 meters long, and it's about 110 kilos without the ballast, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. One of the amazing things at the front of these boats is that we can see here a wave-piercing bow. It's been specifically designed, you can see it points slightly forward, and that's been specifically designed to cut through the waves rather than bounce up and over the waves as it goes. It also adds slightly to the length of the boat. I said it's 10.5 meters long. It's got to fit 4 rowers and a coxswain in it. This is what the positions look like for the racing. Their oars go in these gates. They've got a seat that they slide up and down on. Their shoes specifically designed for easy entry and exit into the boat. And then these ballast weights are attached to the side of the boat. And the crews can move those up and down the boat to adjust where they want the weight to be, either slightly forward or slightly at the back, to make sure that they have the right angle of attack of the whole boat as they coast through the water. Lots of specific things here. You can see it's nearly 1.5 meters wide at its widest point, and that's to create the stability that you need when you're smashing through the waves with essentially a 130 kilo boat with the athlete weights on top. So hugely heavy boat, and that makes it really, really difficult to handle when you've got waves throwing it all around. Now, there are some things that the coxswain, who sits here, can do to try and combat the effects of the waves. They've got a dagger board, a removable dagger board that's really important, because when they put that dagger board in, it helps them to stay straight and combat the effect of the waves. But also they can remove it for when they get to the far end of the course that you'll see in a minute, where there's a hairpin bend. They can pull some of these strings that affect, as we move to the back, the rudder, and allows them to lift or drop the rudder, and then they've got these strings here that they can pull on from their seat to adjust the angle. And you'll notice that there's an open back to the boat here. This means that any water that floods into the boat just washes straight out of the back of the boat and doesn't add to the weight that they've got to carry down the course. So talking about the course, here it is. It's 500 meters long in total, 250 meters out, 250 meters back. The athletes start just where I showed you on the buzzer. They sprint straight down to the boats, where the boats are already in the water, and that means that the coxswain will jump in. They'll race up on the right-hand side of their lane, so there's 2 lanes, race up on the right-hand side of the first buoy, left-hand side of the second buoy, and then they do an anti-clockwise hairpin turn around the furthest turning point and come straight back in. It's a side-by-side race, so when they come crashing into the beach, the bowman has to jump out, sprint up around the flags. You'll see there's 2 flags here on either side for each of the lanes, run up to the finish line, smack that buzzer to stop the timer. So it's an amazing course, 500 meters in total. It's a beautiful course at that here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta. You can see the perfect funnel formation of the beach setup area. And it's a beautiful scene here. We've got 250 athletes competing from across 37 nations here in Italy and spread across 187 crews. So a huge number of athletes here. You can see Corey Rogers there from the USA just getting ready for the first race of the day, due off at 9 o'clock local time here, which will be the first of the last 16 races. Now the last 16 being the pre-quarterfinal races in the format that we've got, essentially a knockout table of racing to get us down to the finalists, which we'll see race to this afternoon in the last 8. So we'll see the mixed doubles race all the way through today. But look at this perfect funnel formation. We've got some great drone shots here in Barletta. Here's our timetable of racing. We start off at 9 o'clock with the mixed doubles, and this being the last 16. So a series of knockout races to whittle us down to 8. And it's the last 8 that will race later on this afternoon for the medals. We go through the mixed doubles, the under-19 men's doubles, women's doubles, and then into the PR3 mixed doubles before we break for lunch. And then after lunch, we've got the last 8. That's where we whittle down in quick order through the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals, where we'll go through the under-19 solos, the mixed quad, and the mixed double. Absolutely loads to look forward to. Just 2 minutes until we get started here today. The first of the races is the first of the last 16 for the Mixed Double Sculls. We're looking here as they get themselves set up. Each of the nations needs to turn up with a team of supporters who you can see here in their pink tops. And I'll explain in a moment why those luminescent and brightly colored tops are so important. They're making sure that they get everything set up cleanly. They want to make sure that the runners are wiped down, which is what they're doing, so that the seats move smoothly up and down the course. Corey Rogers placed 3rd in the mixed coxed quad last year, where we raced in Saundersfoot, Wales. He's here now in the mixed double with Christine Carvalho, who was the winner of the mixed double at the 2023 America's Championships earlier on this summer. So a formidable force from the USA looking to compete here against Croatia. Croatia will be on the other lane, to a 2-lane course. We saw the course explanation. Crowd starting to arrive here in Barletta. We just heard there the 1-minute warning from the umpires. So in a moment, the boat handlers, who are in the luminescent pink tops for the USA, will carry the boat down to the breaking waves to make sure that they're ready and set up. We saw the explanation at the bottom of this funnel, almost in the middle of the picture, is the start and finish line. So that's where the runner will set off from, down to their starting point on the shore. Loads to look forward to today, and you can see that the conditions here in Barletta are absolutely stunning. Around 25 degrees Celsius we'll get up to later on this afternoon, so it's going to be a nice warm day, perfect for racing. The wind tends to pick up here as the day goes on, so consistently through the course of this week it's been a nice and calm morning, and you'll see that that means that it's a relatively flat set of conditions out there on the 500-meter course, 250 meters out, 250 meters back. So those racing this morning have relatively flat conditions, and I was chatting to a few of the athletes, and that means that some of them are pleased, some of them are not so pleased, because they need quite a deep toolbox to be able to race beach sprints. Deep toolbox meaning when the conditions are flat like this, you need the horsepower and the endurance to make sure that you can race that 500 meters well. versus when it's windy, choppy, and you've got breakers, then you've really got to be considering how you handle the boat. And that's where the technical proficiency of beach sprinters and coastal rowers really comes in, because they've got to be able to use that technical skill to make sure that their boat doesn't spin off course. And that's where navigation is crucial. You'll see here that there aren't many landmarks to look at other than the beach setup here of all of the infrastructure for the grandstands and the finish line. But when you're out there and you look over your shoulder, the sun might be in your eyes and you're looking for yellow buoys, it's a tricky thing to spot. So that's where experience is so important. So now, hopefully we're 1 minute away from the start of this race now, which has been slightly rescheduled, making sure that the boats are in tip-top condition for the first race of our day here. It's day 2 of racing at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Puglia, Italy. Christine Carvalho for the USA lining up alongside Lovre Pu for Croatia. These are the runners. That means that their fellow athletes will be down at the boat with their country's boat handlers, making sure that the boat is stable in the water. When the klaxon goes, these two will sprint down and launch themselves into the boat. And that gives their other crewmate the moment they need to get into the boat, get the blades in position, hold it steady and stable by the time they've run down. Here we go. There goes the klaxon. We're off. Good, quick start from both of these two. We see different techniques for the start. Some of them running with socks because they find it that little bit easier to run across sand. Not much separating them as they approach the boats, but it's the USA to take the first stroke. It's a knockout competition, so it's the first crew back who will progress through to the next round. So it's all to play for here. No real issues because you can see the waves aren't that big at this time in the morning. Christine Carvalho, Corey Rogers for the USA, making it cleanly round or past the first mark. Those cigarette boys, tall and thin. The perfect line that people are looking for here is to knock it down with your rigger, not with your oar, and not so that it goes past your oar that you take it too wide. The ideal line is that you go so straight that you actually knock it down with your rigger, but a perfect course being navigated by the USA. Slightly higher rate of sculling we've got from the USA compared to the Croatians. Croatians just struggling to get the boat up to speed here. But the USA, no issue whatsoever as they continue to pull away. They're nearly at the turning mark. The USA going around it now. Now you see the boat handlers on the beach there, and that's why the luminescent colors of their shirts are so important. They are allowed to help in terms of navigation and direction. So when the crew's racing away from the beach, they have their eyes on the boat handlers, and they might be using their arms to gesticulate which way the crews need to pivot or turn to make sure they don't go on the wrong side of a buoy. 30-second penalty, you go the wrong side of the cigarette boys, and I believe it's a full minute if you miss the turning mark at the end. USA a commanding lead here, 5 or 6 lengths out in front of Croatia. And they're coming back on to the beach landing now, so only a moment before we'll see Corey Rogers, who's in the bow with his orange hat on. Tricky stuff getting this landing right, because as the waves come in, the fastest landing you can have is where you just catch one of the waves and you surf it back in to the beach. So let's see how the USA handles their landing here. A great rhythm set by Carvalho in the stroke seat. Corey Rogers, I think, will be looking to get a clean exit. The tricky thing is if the wave lifts up your stern, it can pivot the boat round and you end up landing sideways, which is a tricky and almost dangerous thing to do. Let's see Corey's exit. Textbook, absolutely textbook exit from the American there. He goes round his flag and a super sprint to the buzzer. So that's a win for the USA. They'll progress on to the next round of this last 16 for the coastal mixed double sculls. And then a good sprint up here from Paula Girotto of Croatia. They'll finish in second place here, which means that they won't be progressing on to the last 8. An awfully loud klaxon there to close out this race, and we'll find out who is racing the USA in that last 8, because the next race will be getting ready in just a moment's time, where we've got Canada and Spain lining up. It's essentially a pool of boats. You can see on either side of the funnel here, those boats ready and waiting to be used, and they get cycled through. So everybody uses and shares equipment here, with the only exception being the blades. So you can see Christine Cavalier, Corey Rogers delighted by the outcome of that. I think some of the other crews in the mixed doubles category will be looking at this and thinking that they are a crew to keep their eyes on and certainly one to beat. Boats going down now for the second of the last 16 races for the mixed doubles. Canada and Spain. Tough competition in this category because we've got the Spaniards here, Ander Martin, and this time with Nadia Felipe Garcia. Spain winners last year. Well, at least Ander Martin was. He was then with Esther Briz Zamorano. Oh, and look, we're off. The klaxon's gone, and Spain always so fast at the start. I know that they practice that every single year. They put an immense amount of work into the practice of their start, and there's different techniques for it, making sure you enter the boat in a way that gets your feet into the stretchers quickly. And look at this, they've got about a length and a half up on the Canadians, Aubrey Oldham and Sarah Pigeon. Returning from last year, we've seen these two racing not only in the beach sprints but also in the coastal championships. They were second at the American Championships earlier on this summer to the Americans that we just saw, to Christine Cavalier that we saw in the last race. But look at the power of the Canadians now start to show on the water, the endurance from their coastal racing. They're starting to pull up level with Spain. It's going to be all about how they handle this hairpin bend. Several of them take different techniques. Ander Martin jabbing in his oar there like a handbrake to get them turned around quickly. They've done that in perfect format. They haven't gone too wide. Canada a little bit wider. Now this is the tricky first few strokes. It's almost like a deadlift trying to get that boat back up to speed from an almost standstill. So tricky stuff, carrying the momentum around that hairpin. Spain, textbook on the technique, but I wonder if the power from the Canadian combination can close back in on them. And anything can go wrong when it comes to the beach landing. So we'll see how they tackle that, but I've been really impressed with this Spanish combination. Ander Martin, Nadia Felipe Garcia. A good fast pace set by them through this opening race for them in this last 16. We'll see how they come up towards the beach landing. We can't quite see the zoomed out shot to see how far ahead they are compared to Canada. But the Canadians doing their best to close in. They're still holding 2.5 lengths back on Spain as we come up to the beach landing. Let's see how Martin gets himself out of the boat. I mean, the waves aren't causing them too many issues whatsoever here. Clean exit for the Spaniard, so he'll be up round his flag with no trouble whatsoever. And that will see him progress Spain on to the next round where they'll be facing the USA. So a great performance from Ander Martin and Nadia Felipe Garcia. Felipe Garcia was a silver medalist at the 2023 Europeans in San Sebastian earlier on this summer, so clearly they've been doing a little bit of seat racing to think about who they would be entering in for this World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. 2:35 the time to beat there from Spain. Next race is getting ready, and in this one we've got Noel Creedon and Karen McCarthy for Ireland racing against Matthew Dunham and Jackie Kiddle of New Zealand. So we'll see how the Kiwis, who are frequently on rapid form, they were silver medalists last year in the mixed double. They now find themselves in the silver medalists in the mixed coxed quad last year. Now they find themselves in the double alongside Ireland. Ireland making their debut here at the World Rowing Coastal Championships, but huge depth of field and experience in the Irish squads, always being such an important coastal rowing competition back in Ireland. Here we go then, Jackie Kiddle running down to join Matthew Dunham over on lane 2, which is on the left-hand side of the course. Let's see how she enters the boat here. Blade getting slightly in her way. That could have cost her a second or two. Boat handlers giving her a big shove. Rapid entry and very quick to get the first couple of strokes in there. They've clearly practiced that. No time whatsoever between Jackie getting in the boat and it getting up to speed. There's work now for Noel Creedon and Karen McCarthy for Ireland. Oh, a misstroke there for a couple of misstrokes there for McCarthy, and they're working to get the boat back on to the correct side of the course so that they can go around the second of the cigarette boys. They're only a length and a half or so down on New Zealand. Beautiful scenes here in Barletta for this World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Navigation that bit easier when the waves aren't throwing them around, and there's nearly no current out there on the water to contest with. So it's all about wind management for these crews. Hands straight up there for the Kiwi boat handler, meaning they are absolutely on the correct line. Coming up to the hairpin bend then, let's see how the Kiwis handle this. Are they going to go for the aggressive handbrake turn? They do. Dunham jabbing his oar in, as does Kiddle, pulling around on the outside. 1:11 to halfway, so looking slightly quicker than the Spaniards from the previous race. They've continued to pull away from Ireland, so not going Ireland's way now as the Kiwis experience of rowing and perhaps some of the training that they've put in to the technical parts of this race, particularly the entry and exit, has worked out in their favor. You can see now they've done the slalom on the way out, and it's a straight line back in. Some of the crews yesterday struggling to navigate a direct and straight line back. Not an issue for either of these boats here this morning. Beautiful navigation, so I think it's just going to come down to the exit now, where we're going to see Matthew Dunham for New Zealand sprinting up the beach ahead of Noel Creedon of Ireland. They do have to go around their flag. We've seen mistakes cost crews quite a lot where they've gotten that wrong in the past. When you exit the boat, you're slightly disoriented because you're going from rowing backwards to suddenly running forwards up a beach where there's all sorts of lights, movement. He's got to navigate to his flag. There it is. No issue for him. Domination from New Zealand here to win in this third race of the last 16 for the Mixed Double Sculls. Noel Creedon of Ireland, you can see here in his socks, makes it that much easier to run on the sand. 2:36 the time for New Zealand, 1 second slower than the Spaniards in the previous race. So we'll see how the times compare. Relatively similar conditions in each of the last 16. We do expect the wind to pick up through the afternoon. So when it comes to the last 8 that we can enjoy after the lunch break today, where we've got the under 19 solos for the men and women, and then the mixed coxed quad and the mixed double last 8 this afternoon. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of chop, the wind pick up a little bit, and some challenging conditions for these athletes. That's where the coastal rowers really get to bring in their expertise to the field. So a good win from New Zealand. So we can already tell that the next round for the last 8 will be USA against Spain, and then New Zealand against the winner of the next race, where you've got Great Britain lining up alongside Germany. Laura McKenzie and Sam Scringer for Great Britain in lane 1, and Victoria Horry and Franz Werner for Germany in lane 2. Lane 1 on the left here, and Germany in lane 2 over on the right-hand side. Laura McKenzie stood by the boat. That means that Sam Scringer, the stroke man, will be the sprinter alongside Franz Werner, who's the stroke man for Germany. Great Britain were 4th at the Europeans earlier on this summer, so just missed out on a podium place. They'll be looking to make amends for that. Stunning race there by New Zealand, dominating over Ireland by quite a significant margin in the end. Just perfect execution of some of the challenging and tricky parts to a beach sprint race. Looking then to the 4th of the last 16 races now, where we've got Germany and Great Britain. Boats being taken down to the water, so just moments away from the start of this race. We'll find out who's racing New Zealand when it comes to the last 8. Here we go then. Sam Scringer for Great Britain, running alongside Franz Werner. Not the longest of sprints here in Barletta, certainly compared to what we saw last year in Saundersfoot, Wales in Great Britain, but it's Great Britain off to the faster start here, a length ahead already. You can see how these boats just handle those waves so perfectly in these conditions. And I say that with a slight tint in my voice because we look forward to the challenges of this afternoon as we expect the wind to pick up slightly. So round the first cigarette buoy, thinking on to the second one. Laura McKenzie in charge of navigating that GB boat. They'll be looking back at their boat handlers on the beach to give them some help. Taking quite an aggressive line there, going awfully close to the cigarette buoys. Now they'll be looking to move back over to the right-hand side of their course so that they can go anti-clockwise around the turning point. Great Britain continue to pull away from Germany here, so an impressive start for them. Let's see how they handle the turn. An aggressive approach there. It's really challenging stuff when you're at full tilt. You've got to be awfully brave to jab the blade in because we have seen a lot of boats capsize getting that wrong, but technically perfect there for Great Britain. They're now starting their straight line back in to the beach. Very shallow keels have been put in, or fins have been put into these doubles, partly because it's such a shallow beach that you come in. You can go about 40 meters out and still be only waist deep in the water, so that creates quite a lot of drag on the underside of these boats, and you really feel it out there when you're racing. Keeping the boat speed up when you come into the last 30 or 40 meters into shore, quite a challenge. And then with the beach being so shallow, they can't have a fin that's too long because it'll just snap off. But so many of the crews have requested the boat makers to give them a good shallow fin. It also helps when it comes to that hairpin bend. If your fin is too big, you can't spin the stern round to try and speed up your turn. The fin being towards the stern or the back of the boat, just past where the stroke man is sitting. Let's see how Laura McKenzie handles the exit. There we go. Some instructions from the boat handlers. A good sprint for Laura McKenzie means that Great Britain will go on to the next round, where we'll see them racing against New Zealand. Let's have a look at that time, 2:36. We've got a race on in the next round because Great Britain matching New Zealand almost to the split second for their time here today. So that's going to be a really exciting quarterfinal to enjoy when it gets to the last 8 later on this afternoon. So Great Britain can breathe easy. They're going to have to think about what their strategy is going to be to face off against New Zealand this afternoon. Great race, though, from Victoria Horry and Franz Werner for Germany. They made it into the last 16. These boats getting here via time trial in order to race out to the knockout stages of the competition. Boat quickly being turned around so that we can look to the next of these octo-finals, I understand is the technical term for the pre-quarterfinals. Either last 16 or octo-finals, a few terms for it. And we can see on the right-hand side, we've got Tunisia lining up alongside Australia for this race. Highlights here of the Great Britain-Germany octo-final. Great Britain a storming lead out ahead of Germany. Laura McKenzie making the sprint up the beach to lock it in, and pretty much an identical time to New Zealand, who they'll face in the quarterfinals. Doing the sprint now for this next race, we've got Australia lining up in lane 1. Sprinter here being Marcus Della Mata, and he'll run down to join bowwoman Lucy Hope. And then on the Tunisian side, we have Khadija Krimi sprinting down into the stroke seat to join Hani Spetia. Lucy Hope in the bow seat for the Aussies. She was the 2023 Oceania champion in the women's solo. Matched here now with the Oceania champion for the men's solo, Marcus Della Mata. There we go. We're underway with this next octo-final for the mixed doubles. Good sprint from Khadija Krimi. Let's see how she gets into the boat here. They were the 2023 African Beach Games champions for Tunisia, and they've got off to the faster start now, up to a canvas ahead of Australia, making their way to the first of the turning points. No issue with the navigation whatsoever towards the first corner. It's that much easier when the waves aren't too big to push your bow off course. We'll see this afternoon, I'm sure, a very different set of waves, and making that approach to the first turning point that much more challenging. Power of the Aussies starting to make an impact here as they get their boat up to speed. You can see bouncing over a few waves there. Marcus Delamata in the stroke seat, setting a good rhythm, allowing and trusting the navigation of Lucy Hope and their boat handlers. Still in fact, no, the Aussies have moved out in front now, so good power from them as they approach the turning point. So this is going to come down to how they handle the turning point. We've seen margins of over 2-3 lengths lost by getting this wrong. A much tighter corner from the Tunisians. A very, very wide one from the Aussies. That could cost them. You can see now the Tunisians back in front. So the technical proficiency in the Tunisian boat paying off. It's earned them over a length. That's exactly what I was talking about, where you go too wide and it costs you so much. So we're going to see a sprint up the beach here, because I think the Aussies' speed through the water is going to close down this length lead, and it's going to come down to that beach sprint where we're going to see Hannes Petia in the bow seat of the Tunisian boat racing against Lucy Hope up the beach. It's going to come down to the exit. One thing that has become consistently noticeable when you watch beach sprint racing is that pretty much the first one to get feet on sand tends to win the race. If you stay in the boat too long and try to ride it too far up the beach, it actually tends to cost you. Now, it might sound obvious, that fact, that you want to get your feet on the sand first, but when the boats come in at the same time, the athlete that stays in the boat just that moment longer, thinking that they're going to ride a meter or two further up the beach, it tends to cost them because you're faster on your feet. Now, the Tunisians out in front. This could spell disaster for the Aussies. Let's see how... See a very early exit from the Tunisian. That's exactly the technical sort of exit you'd hope to see. So Tunisia are going to win this octo-final or last 16 race and see themselves progress through to the next round. 2:38.03 their time to the line, so 2 seconds slower than the two previous races we just saw. Disappointment for the Aussies, but they have made it into this series of last 16 for the mixed doubles, so a great performance by them nonetheless. Right, let's find out who's going to race against Tunisia, but we'll, in a moment, have a quick highlights reel of that race. Just textbook proficiency, expertise from the Tunisians, what paid off certainly around that faraway turning point 3. The Aussies had taken the lead, but it was a very, very wide corner, so that'll be something that they're going to think on, I'm sure, for when they come to their next beach sprint race. Many of these athletes doubling up, not only racing in the mixed doubles or in the mixed quads, but also racing in the solos for their age category. 2 age categories competing here at the 2023 Beach Sprint Finals. We've got the under-19s and the Open. So a lot of the under-19s trying to double up into the older events, but it certainly all depends on the depth of field you've got in your squad. So a lot of the newer nations that are coming to compete here, making sure that they double up as much as possible, because it's not always the cheapest of places to get to. But look at this start for the Tunisians. Absolutely textbook stuff, straight course, no issues setting off in the correct direction. So giving the boat handlers an easy job here this morning in Barletta. Boats now being taken down to the water for this next race. Norway against Portugal. Siri Eva Christensen and Fredrik Reiter for Norway against Goncalo Delgado and Beatriz Varela for Portugal. Oh, you notice there, very, very good to see Beatriz Varela, the stroke woman of the Portuguese boat, looking at the flag. The important thing is they're allowed to go when the flag drops. The buzzer happens to go too, but they are allowed to start on the drop of the flag. So quite often we've seen, for various reasons, there be a delay between the flag going down and the buzzer going. And so it's important that they set off when the flag goes. But it's the Norwegians who make the better of this start. Just absolutely rapid first couple of strokes. They're just over a length up on the Portuguese at this early stage. So let's see how the navigation handles now. A nice steady shift in the direction for the Norwegians towards their second turning point. Brave approach to it, not looking over their shoulder whatsoever. Frederick Reiter in the bow seat, trusting the course, trusting the boat handlers on the shore to make sure they're heading in the correct direction. So coming out towards the turning point, let's see their approach for getting round turning point 3. A couple of last-minute adjustments there for Portugal. That's the way to do it. Start the handbrake turn early. Make sure that they get round and don't go too far beyond it, because there's a lot of momentum heading out that way, and they've got to start braking it early and start to spin the bow round. Ideally, you have the stern spin in the opposite direction, almost like a handbrake turn in a car. Norwegians out in front, a cracking start for them. I think the Portuguese will be hard-pressed to close in on this lead now. Still maintaining a length and a half. I think the conditions relatively flat to not give them too much trouble with the exit. I don't want to give them the commentator's curse, though, and jinx them with that. So let's see how they tackle this exit. Straight in towards their boat handlers. Again, a good reason for the brightly colored vests or tops that they wear, so that they can stand out against what is a very, very busy finish funnel. Beautiful conditions here. Look at that sun here in Barletta, Italy. They've managed to catch onto a wave, just get over it. That's the important place to be, just on the correct side of the wave. Slightly slow conditions this morning, which means the waves aren't actually giving them too much of a benefit. Frederick Reiter cleanly out of the boat, just checking where they are. Always important to understand your position. He knows they've done it. Let's see how their time's going to pan out. 2:39, so a second slower than the Tunisians from the previous Octo final. That may be because they weren't quite as pushed as the Tunisians were by the Australians. So we'll see how they pan out, where we see Tunisia and Portugal then in the next round when we get down to the quarters. So Norway, Tunisia in that quarterfinal. Next up, we've got Czechia and France to look forward to. Lots of boat handlers needed to make sure that these heavy boats move around the boat park smoothly, seamlessly, get re-rigged for the next set of competitors racing. They don't have long to make sure that they've got the setup and the rig that they want. Looking here to the great start from Norway. As this event, beach sprint rowing now in its 4th edition, has continued to progress, the speed with which they handle those tricky components of the race, the entry, the exit, the turning points, just getting so much sharper as we go from year to year. But lining up here then for the sprint down, we've got Veronika Cinkova for Czechia on the right and Edwige Alfray for France on the left. I'd be amazed to hear that Edwige Alfray has won a medal at all 3 editions of the beach sprint finals. The last 2 with Ludovic Dubuis, who she's racing with here today. So they certainly have the pedigree to perform well. Both of these athletes with their sprinting socks on. Veronika Cinkova joined here by Jan Fleischner of Czechia, down there with the boat. Both athletes, eyes on the flag, that's what you need to see. Let's see how the sprint goes. Fast start for Cinkova of Czechia, but they both reached the boats almost in unison. start. Slightly better for the Czechia boat there. That will have taken the French by surprise. The twice medalists, Edwige Alfray, Ludovic Dubuis. They're the European champions, bronze medalists in the mixed double from last year, silver at the Europeans last year, silver at the 2021 World Championships, and silver at the 2019 World Championships for beach sprinting. So an immense depth of field in that Czechia boat. Yet to see a podium from the Czechia boats, the French boat, that huge depth of pedigree. So let's see how they come up towards the turning point now. France motoring into the lead. A great 250 meters from them there. Of course, they take a more aggressive approach to the corner. Czechia going slightly wider. Very quick, they're nearly level. I think Czechia taking a few quick strokes there just out of the turning point. May have seen them draw level now. We'll see how they stand alongside France. You can see the big rolling waves now. The ideal being you catch one of these and you just let it pull you into shore. So we often see some slightly staccato racing rhythms. France just clattering down one of the boys. That won't have given them any issue because they did it with the rigger, so they'll have barely noticed it in the boat. We see some staccato racing rhythms because you'll see a couple of quick strokes as the crews try to catch a wave, and then maybe some slow ones and a couple of quick ones to try and catch a wave. And that is the technical proficiency that we're increasingly seeing from coastal rowing athletes, demonstrating that they understand the movement of the water out there offshore. Now we come into the beach. Those waves get that little bit pointier, and the French just getting on the correct side of that wave. It can almost act like a break if you catch the wrong side of it. Ludovic Dubuis making the exit, and it's going to be a fast time for the French here. We might see the fastest time yet this morning, coming up on 2.5 minutes. Yeah, this is the fastest time of the morning, 2:33.27. And Czechia in at 2:38, so they would have progressed had they been in one of the previous races, but shame for them. In their octo final, they come up alongside Czechia. They come up alongside France, and France being such a formidable force in coastal racing, particularly Edwige Alfray. There we have it then, 2:33.27. A lot of crews will have their eyes on that time. And to find out who's going to race against France, we have the last of these last 16 races. Here we've got Chiara Halama and Lukas Asanovic of Austria racing alongside Andrea Serafino and Annalisa Cosorini for Italy. Local favourites here, the Italians, of course. With this competition being in Barletta, we've seen a lot of the local fans coming down, particularly when the Italians are racing. Quick repeat of that French race. Just what a cracking start for Czechia. But just the experience in that French boat, particularly on the way out, the turn, and then pulling away on the return. You can just see the straight line that the French took. Not scared whatsoever of those boys. Clattering them down, making sure they had the straightest course back. Navigation being so critical. Annalisa Cosorini doing the sprint for Italy. And we've got Lukas Asanovic for Austria. Of course, being in the double, both athletes have to do at least one segment of the sprint. You either do it as the stroke person on the way out or as the bow person on the way back in. On the way out, you don't have to go around the flags. They'll sprint straight down to their boat. It's only on the return leg that they need to make sure they go around their flag. And of course, that means that it's absolutely fair. There can't be any landing into the middle of the beach where they both converge onto each other. To try and get the shortest line into the funnel, they need to make sure that they land on their correct side of the lane so that they go around the flag. Great view there of the starting point. Fast start for both of these athletes. Good soft sand, but I think a little bit of a damp evening. It didn't rain here in Barletta last night, but the sand is that little bit moist that gives you a little bit more purchase as you run along it, but it's a faster start for the Austrians. Asanovic and Halama 3 or 4 strokes in already, just over a length up on Italy. Coming up to the turning point, we can see Andrea Serafino looking over his shoulder, making sure that they're on course. Chiara Halama doing the same for the Austrians. Halama we've seen racing previously in the solo. She's certainly got the strength and power to bring to this boat, and that's see them pull away to a length and a half as they come up towards the second turning point now. Great navigation from the Italians. They'll think to push their bows back onto the right-hand side of their lane as they approach the turning point. Nobody wants a penalty. These conditions, we shouldn't see too many penalties awarded because they should be able to get the navigation right whilst the conditions are that little bit flatter. Yuri Suchak helping with the navigation. We'll see him racing later on this afternoon as well. He's in the quad. Around the turning point go Austria, and a perfect turning, rounding of that mark. They still hold their length and a half lead up over Italy. Let's see who holds the endurance and the stamina for this return sprint. It being a beach sprint, it's only 500 meters in total, and we've seen already it's 2.5 minutes worth of effort, but that 2.5 minutes will feel like an eternity, particularly now when the lactic acid will be absolutely hammering them. So straight course also very important. As the day goes on, what we've noticed here in Barletta is that the wind isn't an onshore wind, it is typically a crosswind. So navigation that much more challenging. Austria going slightly wide of their mark as they come back in towards the beach. That could open the door for Italy, who now seem to be drawing level and moving through as we come up on to the landing point. So an immense bit of stamina here from Cozzarini and Serafino. They're nearly a length up coming into the landing, so it's been a great return leg for them. I think the return navigation just upsetting the Austrians slightly. Coming into the beach then, here goes Andrea Serafino. A cacophony of noise from the supporters around the funnel. And here we have Andrea Serafino closing out the win for Italy. They will therefore face France in the next round. A great race from the Austrians, but I think the navigation, that slight bit trickier on the return leg, saw them go that little bit wide, whilst the Italians, a perfect straight line course back in. 2:37.53, 4 seconds slower than the French in the previous heat. So that will be an important 4 seconds when it comes to the last 8 or the quarterfinals that we can look forward to later on this afternoon.
That's a wonderful hug for the Italian couple.
Local supporters clearly delighted by the performance of the Italians to take the win and make it through to the quarterfinals. So that is all of the octofinals, or the last 16 for the mixed double sculls. We now know who's going to be competing later on this afternoon in the last 8 and those quarterfinals, and it's an exciting format. It's why it's considered a power endurance event. We have the whole last 8 bracket taking place in quick order, all within an hour. We'll have the quarterfinals back-to-back, immediately followed by the semi-finals back-to-back, immediately followed by the B final and the A final. So lots to look forward to this afternoon. A quick highlights reel there of that rapid sprint from Austria, getting them off to the early start. Just so quick down the beach was Lukas Asanovic. But the Italians came back. Their return navigation absolutely impeccable. They made the beach landing first and sealing out that win for Italy and progress through to the quarters. Beautiful scenes here in Barletta, Italy. You can see this funnel here that is perfectly designed to make sure that you have 2 lanes out there on the course. The athletes go sprinting down on either side, and it creates this perfect funnel, and spectators now starting to fill the grandstands. Absolutely stunning scenes where we've got 250 athletes competing across 10 boat classes for what is a new Olympic category, where we've seen beach sprint racing now added to the Olympic program for LA 2028. So national squads now starting to really put focus and investment into how they develop their squads into the format of beach sprint racing. And shortly we'll be coming up with the under-19 men's double sculls last 16. We see their repechage, and what that means in the course of beach sprint racing is the octo-finals or last 16, i.e. the round before the quarters. Loads of friends and family coming out here to Barletta. Last bit of sunshine before Europe descends into winter as we come up towards October. But beautiful conditions here this morning. Ander Martin on the right of that picture just cooling off. And then we can see Lukas Hasanovic of Austria. It's one of the cool things about beach sprint and coastal racing. The vibe here at the beach, just so enjoyable. Athletes often helping each other out when it comes to their rigging, and when they're short on hands, getting their boats handled in the water. They'll often give each other a hand too. So an amazing vibe here in Barletta as we get right underway on day 2. A few little highlights from this morning's racing. Jackie Kittle and Matthew Dunham winning out over Ireland to progress on to the quarterfinals. You can see here Laura McKenzie for Great Britain beating out over Germany. The Tunisians, Hani Spetia, alongside Australia. Navigation was key to that race, and that saw them win out over the Aussies to progress on to the next round. Great performance from Norway too, and then of course the well-podiumed French, and then Italy winning out in the end over Austria. Fantastic racing this morning so far in the mixed doubles, and shortly we'll have the men's doubles lining up for their last 16 races as well. And we'll find out who'll progress on to the next round for the men's doubles, where we'll see the last 8 of the men's doubles tomorrow. No, we won't. We'll see the men's doubles we'll see the under-19 men's doubles tomorrow afternoon for their round. Cooling off in the water, Chiara Halama, Lukas Hasanovic, mulling over what happened in their race. But we'll shortly have the men's doubles last 16, the under-19 men's doubles. First race between Peru and the UAE. But absolutely beautiful setting here. 250 athletes, 37 nations, so much to enjoy. And as we look to the men's double, it's only been included for the last 2 editions of the beach sprint finals, and Spain won gold in both of them. So we're going to be keeping our eyes out for Spain and how they set themselves up. They're in the 4th of the races. Vera Montesinos and Nunez Forlani, a new combination here compared to those that have raced at the last 2, but it just shows the depth in the Spanish squad. They do specific training for beach sprints where they absolutely drill them on the entry and exit process, how they do the navigation with their boat handlers to make sure that they're a team working in perfect unison, not just in the boat, but with their handlers outside of the boat too. But exciting to see how the solos and the doubles as boats have progressed in the technical development of the shells, and they don't have the wave-piercing bows in the solos and the doubles, which means they get that little bit more of a bounce over the waves as they head their way out. Lots of proud nations here. You can see Japanese putting up their color work there so that they know that their athletes feel the support. And we've got a DJ lined up, a real beach vibe here in Barletta. For the rest of this morning, we've got the under-19 men's double, shortly followed by the under-19 women's double, and then the PR3 mixed double before we're into a series of time trials through the course of lunchtime, and then we're into the first medal finals after lunch today. So we had racing yesterday, which was mostly time trials to sort athletes and their crews into the correct groupings for the last 16. And then this morning is all about sorting out the groupings for the last 8, where we've got the mixed double this afternoon, and then the under-19 doubles tomorrow, as well as the mixed double tomorrow. So loads to look forward to. You can see that the conditions here in Barletta are absolutely stunning. The wind starting to pick up. We find that an exciting concept when it comes to coastal and beach sprint racing, because that is where you start to see the real technical proficiency of the coastal athlete out there on the water. Their reading of the waves, the currents, the tides, the wind, all of these things having a huge effect on how they navigate the short course. But a great day of racing so far. We've had the last 16 for the mixed double. We'll be back with you shortly for the under-19 men's double in just about 15 minutes.
Questa è la maschera di ragazzi, la maschera di Victor, dico che si è preso Gaetano a fuoco. Non è uguale che fa la tuscia. Buongiorno. Signori, però dovete andare più là. A turno. Grazie mille, dai, bello.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back to it. We are about to start with the under-19 men's double sculls. Signore e signori, è arrivato il momento di ritornare insieme sulla spiaggia qui a Barletta. Stiamo per ripartire con le nostre competizioni. Ripartiremo con il doppio under-19 maschile. Sarà una grande battaglia, staremo insieme con una serie di partenze inframmezzate ogni 5 minuti fino alle 10:25. We can't wait to see the outlet racing, and they will be racing every 5 minutes on and on.
Beautiful scene here of the end of the finish funnel. That archway, the start and finish point for all of the racing here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Italy. Zooming out from the course, you can see the yellow flags on either side for each lane, and the grandstands now filling up with all of the spectators here to watch the next category of racing, where we've got the under-19 men's double sculls about to get started. We can look forward to 6 races in this round of last 16, or the pre-quarterfinals, and we'll look forward to seeing who gets knocked out, who makes it through to the next round. Absolutely stunning conditions. Wind coming from the opposite direction today, waves coming from the opposite direction today, so that'll upset the running order of things, where the crews have been training in the last couple of days, and certainly compared to what they raced in time trials through the course of yesterday. Lining up for the first of the 2 races, we've got Peru and the UAE to win. Great to be able to pick that up. You can see the UAE boat there. Hamad Amar Rashid Abdullah Al Shamsi and Sultan Ahmed Amran Saif Al Shamsi for the UAE, coached by Sid Ali Uwada. They're lining up alongside quite a formidable pairing here. Thomas Parry and Lorenzo Diaz Canseco. Canseco, the America's champion in the under-19 mixed double and the men's solo. So now joined by Thomas Parry, that's going to be a formidable boat for Peru. We'll see how they break us in to this next boat category for the under-19 men's double. Beautiful scenes here on the far eastern coast of Italy, almost at the heel point of the Italian coastline. Here we go then. This is Lorenzo Diaz Canseco for Peru, running alongside Hamad Amar Rashid Abdullah Al Shamsi of UAE. Let's see how they handle this entry. Canseco first to get his bottom in the seat. First couple of strokes were a little bit turbulent. UAE, he's off his seat. It's disaster for Al Shamsi in the stroke seat there. Missing a few strokes. That's opened the door for the Peruvians to get up towards the first turning point first. And they'll have work to do to try and close in on that gap now that the Peruvians have earned for themselves at the front of the field. Slightly bouncy out there in these doubles as they start to get into the rolling waves that are rolling in towards the shore. It'll be to their advantage on the way back in if they can harness it. A couple of big strokes there from Canseco, just making it to the correct side of that turning point. 30-second penalty if they miss the turning point, and that is basically race over, because 30 seconds is enormous when it's only a 2.5-minute race overall. So I think the Peruvians, certainly with the experience of Canseco in the stroke seat, will be hot favourites to win this first in the pre-quarterfinal races for the under-19 men's double. Good rounding of the turning point, giving the Peruvian boat handlers on the beach an easy time of the racing today. United Arab Emirates just making it round the turning point now. I think there's going to be too much work for them to do to get back up into contention with the Peruvians. The Peruvians just having great boat speed now. Perfect navigation sees them heading directly back on the line that will see them possibly clatter their turning point. Not a big issue. That's exactly what you want to do. It shows that you've got the straightest line, and if you can hit it with your rigger, which is the metal branch sticking out from the boat holding the gate that holds it, wave just pushing the UAE boat off course. They managed to correct for it, so it didn't have too much of a detrimental impact on their race, but it's domination from Peru here, I think, well and truly earning themselves a place into the next round, showing the caliber in this boat, particularly Canseco, now joined by Parry, and they've certainly got the strength to get that boat up to a really good boat speed. This is Thomas Parry exiting now. Oh, not exactly how you want to do it, but it didn't slow him down too much. Almost telling himself off there through the first couple of steps. But here we go, he gets to that buzzer. Let's check out his time, 2:39. So a couple of seconds slower than the mixed doubles we saw in the previous round, but that set the benchmark, 2:39 flat for Peru. And then here comes the UAE. This is Sultan Ahmed Omran Saif Al-Shamsi making his way up the beach. Gutsy performance from both of them. But that'll be the end of competition for the UAE, coming in just over 3 minutes. A great race from the young athletes, but it's Peru that will progress on to the next round. And we can see already lining up Great Britain's Bear Cochrane on the right, Michalis Tanos for Cyprus on the left. Dominating win for Parry and Diaz Canseco, 2:39 flat in the first of the pre-quarterfinal races. Quick turn around of the boats. You can see the staging area just in front of each of the grandstands in the middle of the funnel, where the boats are getting prepared and lined up for the next race. So they've got a nice chain of 6 doubles that are cycled through. Boat handlers having to be provided by the nation themselves. So it's a traveling contingent of athletes, coaches, support staff, and boat handlers. Athletes themselves can be boat handlers, so I'm sure that'll be something that they start training for, much like Formula One pit crews, making sure that they're getting the rig right quickly and then helping the athlete into the boat, feet in stretcher, blades in hand, and then you are allowed to give the boat an almighty shunt to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. You can probably hear in the background the bass and the music from the DJ. We'll have people dancing all around the grandstand here later on this afternoon. Starting umpires giving the order for the boats to be taken down to the water. The athlete that waits with the boat must stay feet on the floor until the klaxon goes. And as soon as that flag drops, they can jump in. There we go. We're underway with this second of the pre-quarterfinal races for the under-19 men's double. Bear Cochrane making the sprint down for Great Britain alongside Michalis Tanos. Let's see who takes the first couple of strokes. Tough to tell. I think Great Britain just out in front by a nose already. Boat handler giving it everything, giving all of himself to getting that GB boat up to speed. Benjamin Snoxall not in the bow seat. And for Cyprus, we've got Ioannis Lazarou in the bow seat there. So they were already in the boat by the time their fellow athletes get down to them. A much more aggressive line from Great Britain here. Let's see how they approach this second turning point. Slight S-bend for the Cyprus boat, just trying to make sure they get to the correct side of the second turning point. I think they could miss it here, though. They're having to correct again. Just in the nick of time. Great Britain, an aggressive line, but it's worked out for them. Bear Cochrane had sepsis earlier this summer, and he then had to complete final trials. So he's made an amazing recovery to be back in the boat and having seat raced for his place here representing Great Britain. it's paid off. They're out in front and making a good sharp turn, if a little bit long, beyond the turning point. So that's something that I'm sure they'll consider. In their favor, though, Cyprus went long as well. A lot of work to do now for Cyprus to get back up to speed, but Bear Cochran in the stroke seat setting a great rhythm here. That's exactly what you'd expect of a jazz saxophonist. Leading the way, we can see then Benjamin Snoxall in charge of the navigation, just making sure he's looking over his right shoulder at that opportune moment that he doesn't upset the balance of the boat. And it's a good aggressive line. They're going straight down through the turning point, boys, to make sure that they make landfall exactly in front of their flag. They want to minimize the amount of running that's got to take place up the beach so that they set the fastest time possible. It looks like they'll be going through because you can see an ocean of clear water here between Great Britain and Cyprus. The winner of this race will go on to face Peru in the next round. So Great Britain to make the exit. Benjamin Snoxall in the bows will be turning around in a moment to launch himself up onto the sand. Textbook, no issues there. And Great Britain going to win this second race for the under-19 men's doubles. 2:36.7. the time to beat, so a couple of seconds quicker than the Peruvians from the previous round, so we'll see what that means when it comes to the last 8 for the under-19 men's doubles that we can expect tomorrow afternoon. Valiant performance though, Ioannis Lazarou for Cyprus closes out their race here. So that's the first 2 down. We know what the first race of the last 8 is going to be for the under-19 men's double sculls. Boat handlers and athletes responsible for taking their boats back to the staging area. Quick recap of that race. Pretty level pegged getting down to the boats. I think Great Britain just that slightly better drilled when it came to taking the first couple of strokes and saw their advantage build as their power and boat speed propelled them into a commanding lead. Concluded there with Benjamin Snoxall making his way up the beach. Next race, though, we're looking to Ireland against Japan. Colm Murphy and Owen Balfe of Ireland in lane 1, and Sasuke Kumata and Shohei Matsuoka for Japan in lane 2. Owen Balfe doing the running alongside Matsuoka Shohei for Japan. Most of the Irish, we've noticed, have their socks on. They do believe it gives them that slightly better purchase in the sand. We have seen people slip and trip. The slightly damp sand of this morning giving them that slightly better purchase than when it's entirely dry. So theoretically, we shouldn't see too much slipping around here in Barletta today. And of course, the bowman is the one who'll do the sprinting on the second leg, on the return leg. So we'll see Colm Murphy ahead alongside Kumata Sasuke. There we go, rapid for Matsuoka. No hesitation whatsoever from the Japanese athlete. Let's see how they handle the entry. Feet going in. No pause whatsoever to do up the strapping. Hopefully that won't cause them any issue, but I think that they're just trusting in the integrity of the shoes in the boat to hold their feet in. Level as we come up for the first buoy. We've got a real race on our hands here now. They're looking across the Irish. Murphy and Balfe just wanting to see where they stand. And there we have a disaster in the Japanese boat. I think he's had a technical issue. Maybe his feet came out of the foot stretcher. They're back onto it now, though, but he's having to fix it again. This is disaster for Japan. Not at all what you want to see here. I think his feet just not quite working with the foot stretcher. In fact, no, it's his seat. You can see that he's not able to slide up and down his seat whatsoever, so he may have had to... Yeah, they're dead in the water now. This is not good news for Japan. There's no coming back from this. Ireland will make the rounding of the turning point. I think Japan know what that means for their race and their competition. Such a shame when they were absolutely level with Ireland through the first 100 meters. I think a technical issue with the seat. Ireland know that they've got it in the bag, so you can see that they're not too pushed now as they make their way towards land. They'll be wanting to make sure that they at least do so without a technical difficulty of their own. Japan still struggling to make this rounding. You can see that in the bow seat, Kumata Sasuke not able to move up and down the slide comfortably. When that sort of thing happens, you just don't have the length or reach on the blades to match your teammate. And certainly when you're trying to get around a turning point, you need that reach. You need to be able to put the power down if you're going to get this boat moving in any kind of meaningful way. Here come Ireland, comfortably going to win this race, this pre-quarterfinal for the under-19 men's doubles. Only a few strokes remaining for them. So we won't see a competitive time, I don't think, from the Irish in this, but that's okay. The knockout format means the times don't really mean anything here. You can see that the conditions still beautiful and calm, and the shallow, shallow water means that it's a relatively straightforward exit for Colin Murphy, making his way up. No, there's Owen Balfe in the bow seat. Good entertaining dive, 2:45. So interestingly, that's going to be one to watch. 2:45 their time, just 5 or 6 seconds slower than some of the others. And considering they weren't pushed, that could mean they've got an extra gear in the engine room for when it comes to the last 8, which is where they're going from this round of pre-quarterfinals. Disappointment, I'm sure, though, for the Japanese, Kumata and Matsuoka. Technical issue, seeing them out of competition now. But these things happen. This is what makes it sport, and exactly why the entry and exit and management of your rig in the boat so important to get practiced, drilled, and ready for the next race. Murphy and Balfe of Ireland progress on from this pre-quarterfinal. Next, though, very excited to see how the next race is going to turn out. We've got Spain and Turkey. Spain, I mentioned earlier, have won both of the 2 previous editions of the men's double sculls for under-19s. And whilst it's different athletes, the fact that they've done it twice with different athletes in previous years could mean that they have just the perfect school for up-and-coming young athletes making it into the national squads for beach sprint racing. Both of these Spaniards, 18 years of age, alongside the Turkey boat, both at 17 years of age. Here we go, making the run for Spain, Nicolas Nunez Forlani, alongside the runner for Turkey, Arda Berat Kekaker. There we have it, quick start for the Spanish. Sprinting, a core component to the beach sprint final race format. Nunez Forlani joined by Manel Vera Montesinos. And then in the Sakio boat, we've got Arda Berat and Semi Yagiz Al. Spain off to the faster of the starts. This is what we see every time from the Spanish squad. Just so perfectly drilled in getting off quickly. No waiting whatsoever for the stroke person to get situated fast or their feet in the boat properly. It puts high risk to technical issues coming into the competition when it comes to falling off the seat coming off the runners, feet not being in the shoes properly, blades not being in hand properly. Huge amount of risk. That's why it needs to be drilled to perfection. But Spain, a commanding lead coming up towards the 3rd turning point already. Excellent navigation, not the most aggressive of lines that we've seen from some of the Spanish crews in the past. Now you can see the diagonal angle of attack of the waves that are coming in towards them. Are Spain going to get on the correct side of this turning point? Yes. Very close, though. They've taken a very aggressive line to that hairpin bend. And they've not gone long. They've gone very, very tight around it. exactly what you'd expect to see. So they'll have to make some corrections to their course. They're not quite directly lined onto the beach. Turkey doing their best to get around the buoy quickly. I think we're going to see a fast time from Turkey. It's the Spaniards that are just blowing the competition out of the water in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if they set the fastest time of the morning so far based on how quick they've been here. Vera Montesinos and Nunez Forlani absolutely motoring now. They've got a couple of lengths clear water on Turkey, who are doing their best to close in this gap. They have closed it down slightly on this return leg, showing some good endurance in this 500-meter race, but I just don't think they're going to be able to close in on Spain. Let's see how Spain's drilled and practiced exit works out for them. Last couple of strokes, and we're going to see Spain's Vera Montesinos in the bow seat get himself onto the beach. You can hear the enthusiastic boat handlers there giving them some enthusiasm and encouragement. Not the fastest of exits, but I think we're going to see quite a quick time here. 28, 29, 30. It's not going to be the quickest time of our morning, but it's going to be the quickest time of the under-19 men's doubles so far. A second quicker than Great Britain from 2 races ago. So that is the time now to beat, 2:35.38. Quick switch around of the boats, but there's the timing confirmed. Near 10-second advantage, Spain over Turkey. So Turkey knocked out, and it's Spain that will progress on to the last 8. In a moment, we'll have a quick recap of that race. I love watching the Spanish approach to the technical bits of the race. Next race on the course, there will be Ukraine-USA. Ukraine's Bohdan Hladchenko and Ihor Mazepa alongside the Americans, Aiden Humbert and Luke Alexander Eward. Look how quick the Spaniard was out of the starting line there. Absolutely rapid, Nunez Forlani. That set them off to the best possible start. 2 lengths up by the first turning point. That's exactly what you'd want as a dream race. But Vera Montesinos is the one who comes in to press the buzzer and secure the win for Spain and progress into the quarterfinals. Moments now before this next of the pre-quarterfinals for the under-19 men's doubles. I see Ihor Mazepa for Ukraine racing alongside Luke Alexander Eward. Boat being carried down to the water ready for the start of this race. Oh, it's Humbert doing the sprint here. They've swapped around in the USA boat. So we'll see Eward doing the return leg. That means that Humbert's now in the stroke seat. He was planned to be in the bow seat, so doing some last-minute changes in the lineup. Here we go then. We've got a good start. Mazepa for Ukraine on the near side of this picture, but it's the fast-sprinting American over on the far side who gets to the boat first. Let's see if he can turn that into an advantage in the first couple of strokes. They do. First couple of strokes, nearly a length. That'll pay off to become. Some corrections required already for the USA, needing to get back onto their side of the course. That could cost them. Good start for Ukraine, though. Making their way up fast to the turning point, and they've managed to turn that into a lead. So an impressive turnaround for Ukraine. They weren't the fastest to the boat, and they weren't the first to get a couple of strokes in, but just the better navigation. It just shows how important it is that they set off straight and they make sure that they've got the boat going in the right direction. Half of this is about knowing where the boat needs to be. The other half is about putting the boat there. So they're past the second turning point now, Ukraine. And the tricky thing is knowing where the boat needs to be and then making sure that this diagonal movement of the waves that you can see coming in from the top left of the screen doesn't push them off course. They're gone slightly long here, I think. But bravely taking that aggressive style to the turn. I think it's going to be hard work for the USA to close in on this lead now. There's 3 lengths or so in it when they're both back up to speed. An impressive start for Ukraine. I think they'll be pleased with that performance. Hladchenko and Mazepa, first time racing at a World Rowing event. 17 years of age, both of these athletes. And they'll be looking to try and make their mark for Ukraine with now a 3.5 to 4 length advantage over the USA. So an impressive performance. Look at this, it looks as though some slight navigational issues from the USA again. They'll have to make a few corrections to make sure they're on a straight line course back into the beach. I mentioned before how tricky it is to see your boat handlers and head straight for them. You don't want to look over your shoulder too much, because when you're looking over your shoulder, it can upset the balance of the boat. And it also means that you're not in the best position, your body in the best position, to put power into each stroke. So you want to be sighting as little as possible, but that means you've got to have the feel for it. Coming out of the boat then, Hladchenko, Bohdan Hladchenko for Ukraine, making his way up to press the buzzer cleanly around his flag and progress on to the next round. 32-33, and we have a new fastest time in the under-19 men's double sculls from this morning's racing, that is, of course. So they were quicker than the Spanish in the previous round. The new time to beat, 2:33. This is exciting stuff. It's going to be hot competition when it comes to the quarterfinals tomorrow afternoon. Hladchenko, Mazepa, a dominating performance. Not the fastest into the boat, not the fastest to take the first stroke. They'll be mulling that over, I'm sure, overnight, thinking about how to improve on that when it comes to the quarterfinals tomorrow. Next up is the pre-quarterfinal race between Germany and Canada. Lots of amazing volunteers here in Barletta, helping to make sure that this event runs so smoothly. Schools getting involved, local groups helping to make sure that everything runs to plan. And it's absolutely needed, because all these boats require moving around, and they weigh an awful lot. You saw in my walkthrough of the Coastal Mixed Coxed Quad boat earlier, 130 kilos without the athletes. Here's that race, a rapid start for Aidan Humber of the USA, but it was the Ukrainians who just turned their start into that advantage and then just didn't make any mistakes. That's one of the tricky things with this. It's not only about the endurance, it's about not making mistakes, getting that navigation right. And Ukraine set the fastest time of the morning for the under-19 men's doubles. 2:33 the time to beat. Denis Ovdienko and John Liu for Canada, alongside Johannes Hopf and Michael Madaras of Germany. Madaras doing the running alongside Liu, both the stroke men of their boats. Boats now being put in the water, so they'll be under starters orders in just a moment's time. Relatively easy for the bowmen at this stage, because the waves aren't too bad. So when we see the flag drop, we tend to focus on the sprinter making their way down the course, but it's also tricky stuff for the bow person. There we go. Sprinters making their way down. Rapid start for Liu. Look at this beautiful overhead drone shot. Liu's going to get there first to find Ovdienko already in the bow seat. And I was saying earlier that it's easy for the bow men in these conditions where it's flat to stay and hold the boat steady. But as the wind picks up and those waves really pick up, they find it almost impossible to be in a stationary boat and holding it flat. But Germany have had a great start here. Johannes Hopf, Michael Madaras getting their boat up to speed quickly in the bows. Hopf trying to take a couple of early strokes before Madaras was in the boat. That could have upset things, because it's tricky when you're trying to get your feet into the shoes, your bum on the seat, and the boat starts moving and wobbling about out of the hand of the boat handlers. It hasn't upset them too much. In fact, Germany have a commanding lead already as we come up towards the third turning point. And I think Canada really have work to do here. Hard work already on the face of Michael Madaras of Germany. So you can see the effort that he's had to put in. He's already done a sprint more than his fellow crewmate. Hopf, but around the turning point, Germany going very long there. I wonder if Canada can compensate for that and close some of the margin that Germany have already earned for themselves. They go slightly tighter. Ooh, tricky. They nearly put the bow on the wrong side of the turning point there. That would have cost them, and it's cost them by being too close and upsetting their first couple of strokes, which are the hardest strokes in this race because they don't have the benefit of the boat handlers giving them a push to up to speed, and they basically have to get the boat from a standstill, and it's like a clean and jerk effort of about 10 strokes, 10 absolutely massive strokes when the lactic acid is already burning in your muscles to get the boat up to speed. Canada taking that aggressive line. It's been tricky for them, these aggressive line, because it's just been upsetting the rhythm of their stroke, and it means that they're not quite getting the boat speed up to draw in on Germany. Not a big issue for Germany to clatter that buoy with their blades here because they're still holding a relatively safe margin. Coming to the beach then is almost certainly going to be Germany's win unless there's a disaster for Johannes Hopf getting out of the boat. Let's see how he handles this exit. No issue whatsoever. Quick orientation for the flag. And it's a great performance from Germany. How are we looking for time? Slightly slower than the previous race. And Germany closing out with a 2:39.62. So I think we're all going to have eyes on Ukraine when it comes to the later rounds of competition, because that was an absolutely rapid performance in the previous race from Bohdan Hladchenko and Ihor Mazepa. Good race here nonetheless from Hopf and Madaras. They've earned their way through to the last 8 and the quarterfinals for the under-19 men's double here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Good little recap here. Germany, Canada, both getting to their boats at the same time. You can see these challenging first few strokes, what upset Canada's rhythm, opened the door for Germany to pull away. And despite a slightly long rounding of the turning point for Germany, they made it back with a 2:39.64, their time back to the buzzer. Blades being taken out, that's the only specific bit of equipment specific to the country. The rest of the boat remaining there for the next crew from whichever country is lined up to use it next. Pool boats being used here, which means that absolutely consistent and fair competition. And a great little zoom in. You can see that's where you've got to slip your feet into. They're not bothering with the straps over the tops, just relying on getting their feet in and the toe covers sufficient to hold their feet in place. The only disaster they then need to make sure doesn't happen is that they don't come off their seat and the seat doesn't come off the runner. Everything else is pretty much well managed. Those are the only main technical issues you can have unless you get involved with a broken fin or a broken rudder on the shallow beaches. Shouldn't be too much of an issue in the low waves that we've got here in Barletta through the course of the morning, but it could spell some fun when we look to the racing later this afternoon. Bit of a raking of the starting point there. You can imagine that as these athletes start the sprint there and they finish with a big dive towards the buzzer, that start line and finish line takes a little bit of a hammering, so it needs to be neatly raked out. And you can see the infrastructure well set up here for all of the traveling press and crews. On the right hand side of that picture, the pink tentage full of ergos for warming up and warming down. These crews need to make sure they're well warmed up, because as you can imagine in any sprint event, the last thing you want is to pull a muscle or pick up an injury because you've gone straight into a sprint. It's easy to get relaxed in this beach vibe and culture that's forming around beach sprint rowing now, but we need to remember it's elite competition, and it is elite racing that we're enjoying when we look here. Mark Caval, our DJ, our traveling DJ, and Marcella making sure that we're enjoying the music and the vibe here at the Beach Sprint Finals. Some of the amazing traveling fans, friends and family, and beach sprint enthusiasts from all around the world descending on Barletta for the 2023 edition of the Beach Sprint Finals. I mentioned earlier, 250 athletes from 37 nations traveling to be here from all corners of the world. We've got crews from as far as Bahamas, and some nations that haven't ever raced here before. We've got Ukraine racing for the first time at the beach sprint finals, Turkey, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Cyprus, even Croatia, Belgium and Australia we haven't seen at the beach sprint finals before. So it's good to see them taking part in the 2023 edition. And a lot still to look forward to, because next up we've had the under-19 men's double. We're going to move on in a moment to the under-19 women's double sculls. The under-19 women's double sculls being a hotly contested category. Annalise Hall's in the first race alongside Annalie Duncan for the USA. They're racing alongside the Bahamas, Renee Ingram and Alicia Adderley. Annalise Hall we saw racing in the solo as well, the under-19 solo. She was going through her time trial. Her side-by-side race yesterday. She was due to be racing alongside a Peruvian who sadly didn't show up for the race, which basically opened the door for Annalise Hall to progress on to the next race. Highlights here from the under-19 men's double. That Spaniard fast start, just absolutely unbelievable. I think the national federations from all around the world and head coaches will be looking at the Spanish racing this weekend and just taking a lot of notes on what they'll want to drill for next year, because they are absolutely setting the benchmark and the class when it comes to the technical difficulties of beach sprint racing. We now know the last 8, and you can find all the information and the results on the World Rowing website if you want to look up who's progressing, what the results were from all of the racing here at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Stunning imagery here, Quattro Media making sure that World Rowing Productions making sure we got the best view of all of the racing here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Boats now switching round so that we can be ready for the under-19 women's doubles to take place in just a few moments' time, in about just under half an hour, as we get ready here on day 2 of racing. This being the last 16 for the under-19 women's doubles. We'll see their last 8 races, the quarterfinals and onwards, tomorrow afternoon. So they do get overnight to rest and recuperate once they've raced today, at least for those that progress on to the next round. Getting up towards a balmy 25 degrees here, the sun beaming down. You can see there's not a cloud in the sky, so we've seen some very red people wandering around. Must make sure that we go out with the sun's screen later and tackle some of those red people wandering around. But it's absolutely beautiful weather here, and conditions lovely out there on the water. We're going to be back with you in just under half an hour for the first of those pre-quarterfinal races for the under-19 women's doubles.
Jojo, bis später, ne?
to the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. We're delighted to have you here supporting the athletes. Enjoy the races.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on this stunning beach here in Barletta with the Under-19 Women's Double Sculls. Ben ritrovati nuovamente sulla spiaggia di Barletta per la ripartenza delle nostre competizioni. A brevissimo inizierà il doppio Under 19 di 13. 5 minutes to go. 5 minuti alla partenza ufficiale. And here we have a special guest from the United States of America. She will be starting shortly, so please, over to me.
I am with Anna Lee of USA Europe Racing. How are you feeling right now? I'm feeling really good about it. I'm super excited. It's feeling good. Brilliant. Now, you were on the podium last year, am I right? Yes. So, how are you feeling this year? You're with the same partner, so are you hoping to do a bit better now this year?
Gioia per me. Sì, però gli attesi non si possono aspettare. Era finita. Allora, non dice questa cosa, ma dalle 11 alle 11. L'ultima gara,
Just moments until the next race. We've had the Under-19 men's double, we've had the mixed doubles. Next up, we've got the pre-quarterfinal races for the Under-19 women's doubles. We had the time trials through the course of yesterday where 5 boats progressed directly through to the last 8. They were Great Britain, France, Italy, Spain and Peru, which means that these pre-quarterfinals, 6 boats who were at the back end of the time trials will race out for the positions to also progress through to that last 8. So 11 boats entered in total in the Under-19 women's category, and they'll face off now for the 3 remaining places into the last 8, where they'll join the 5 winners or the 5 fastest boats from the time trials of yesterday, being Great Britain, France, Italy, Spain and Peru. First race up then, we've got Annalise Hall and Annalie Duncan for the USA in lane 1. They were 6th in the time trial, facing off against Bahamas, who were 11th, where we've got Renee Ingram and Alicia Adderley. Alicia Adderley, the youngest athlete in this boat category, just 15 years of age, here racing on the world stage here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals in Barletta, Italy. Time to beat set by Great Britain in the time trial, 2 minutes 59. That was the fastest in the Under-19 women's doubles category. Now, they were in very different conditions to what we're seeing here this morning. So there were slightly more challenging conditions yesterday for the time trials. So we'll see whether that means that these athletes can make some faster time and faster work of these pre-quarterfinals. Annalie Duncan for the USA running. She'll be in the stroke seat and sprinting alongside Alicia Adderley, the youngest athlete in this Under-19 doubles category for Bahamas. Just moments from the start of the race, so the boats are in the water. Duncan enjoying the beach vibe here, don't you know, pump it up. Getting her into that race feeling and race vibe. They're called forward, ready, and there goes the buzzer. We're underway in quick order. Annalie Duncan and Alicia Adderley, USA versus Bahamas. Looking pretty level coming down to the water's edge. Harl and Duncan for the USA, they were bronze medalists last year in the under-19 women's double category, so they'll be certainly eager to make the podium. I'm sure that 6th in the time trials may have been a bit of a disappointment for them. That means they've got to go through this additional round, these pre-quarterfinal races, to earn themselves a spot in the last 8 for the quarterfinals. Going quite wide there at the first turning point. That'll mean they have to do a big correction to get back onto the left-hand side of the second buoy. For those just joining us all around the world, welcome to the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. First turning point they have to go to the right-hand side of, the second turning point to the left-hand side of, so they've got a bit of a slalom, and then they have to move back over to the right to go anti-clockwise around the third turning point, the hairpin bend, before they come straight back down the course to make their beach landing. So the USA boat out in front. Oh, Bahamas just missing that buoy. That's going to be a disaster for them and cost them a time penalty. 30 seconds will be added to their clock unless they turn around. We often see crews turning around to go back around the buoy the correct way around, because that can often be quicker than incurring the time penalty. I think it's not going to affect the outcome of this race, though. The USA, a great start for them. They're out in front as they now make their way back in towards the beach, a straight line course back in. They'll be looking to land as close to their flag for their lane as they possibly can, because the sprinter, who in this case will be Annelies Harl, will have to sprint around the flag and make her way up to the buzzer to close out this pre-quarterfinal race. But I think this is the outcome we all expected based on the time trial results from yesterday. 6th place were the USA, 11th place out of 11 were the Bahamas. So we would expect the USA to go through. That's how it works when you come to the pre-quarterfinal races. You have 6th against 11th, 7th against 10th, 8th against 9th in these pre-quarters. But the USA looking pretty solid here. They'll be going through to the next round. I can't see anything changing here. Even if they have a turbulent landing, they'll have plenty of time to recover. Great performance, though, from this young combination. 15 and 16 years of age, Renea Ingraham and Alicia Adderley here representing the Bahamas. They've given it absolutely everything, but I think the speed of this USA boat just a little bit too much to contest with. Annelies Harl for the USA making her sprint up the beach. And that will close out this pre-quarterfinal, the first of the pre-quarterfinals for the under-19 women's double, and secure the USA a spot into the quarters. Have a look at that time, 2:48.1, so already faster than the fastest time in the time trials yesterday, but that's because the conditions just that little bit calmer, less wind, less chop on the water to contest with. So 2:48.1 time to beat. We've got 2 more of these pre-quarterfinal races to enjoy, and then we'll know the full lineup of the last 8 for the under-19 women's double. The last 8, i.e. those quarterfinals and the rapid progression through the bracket, taking place tomorrow afternoon. Sprinting up here, though, we've got Renea Ingraham for the Bahamas to close out their race and their competition. Great performance from the Bahamas, but they won't be progressing from here. We'll see the USA go through, and those quarterfinals, semifinals and finals all happening back-to-back tomorrow afternoon. So that was the first of the pre-quarters for the under-19 women's double, won by the USA, 2:48.1. We look forward to finding out who will be joining them in the last 8, because the next 2 races are coming up in just a moment's time. But quick recap, good clean entry from Annalie Duncan. I think the steering issues for the Bahamas just upsetting their race, but not overturning the outcome, because I think the USA were out in front regardless. Great performance from these 2. They've clearly well drilled when it comes to the navigation. Next race, though, Maeve McNamara and Grace Masterson for Ireland alongside Marlon van der Hooy and Anna Fischbach. Fischbach for Germany doing the first sprint alongside Masterson of Ireland. Just a second or 2 until we get underway. Germany was 7th in the time trial, Ireland 10th. Masterson here does athletics back home at her school, so we'll be expecting a fast sprint from her. Moments away from the start of this, And there we have it. Ireland alongside Germany. Anna Fischbach is the European champion of 2022 in the under-19 women's solo. And it's a cracking start for Ireland. They got there a lot quicker than the Germans, and we're underway here with this second of the races. And now joining me in the commentary box, we've got Annalie Duncombe, who we just saw race. Annalie, welcome to the commentary box. How was your race?
That was really good. That felt amazing, yeah.
Yeah? Challenging race for you guys. You set off really well. Tell us, what's it like out there on the water?
It felt really good. The conditions were perfect. None of the waves really threw us off. So all around, it was a really good course, I think. Pretty straight.
Yeah, amazing. You were certainly having a great race. You navigated it so well. And as we look to the race that we've got on the course here now, Germany and Ireland, they're coming up to the third turning point. Ireland out in front. What's it like, that turning point?
Around the buoy, it could have been a little bit better, but I think that the wind wasn't too bad, at least on my side. So, yeah, it was fine for sure.
Yeah. You've done such a good job. You've literally just come off the water and you come to join me here. Well done.
A little out of breath, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. And now this is quite a tricky bit here. We're looking at Germany making the rounding of the third turning point first. They've gone a bit wide there. What's the technique for getting that right?
Definitely when you're going to turn and you're when you're turning, you've got to lean all the way to port when you're checking, because otherwise it's really pointless. Your oars can come out of the water. It gets messy. So it's important to master leaning all the way out.
Yeah, it looks so difficult. And Germany have really motored through to a solid lead now. I mean, look at this. This is Mia McNamara and Grace Masterson for Ireland, now being left for dust by Van der Ey and Fischbach. I mentioned earlier that Fischbach is the European champion from last year. She now finds herself in the double. They were 7th through the time trials yesterday. Annalie, tell us about the time trials yesterday, the conditions on the water versus today. How did you find that in comparison?
I would say it felt really similar. It was about the same time. The waves were feeling the same. I think we did really well in the time trials. Fortunately, we got a 10-second penalty. Apparently, my partner got in the boat early. We weren't aware. But, yeah, it felt really good for the time trials, I think. It's super similar to what it is right now.
Yeah, interesting. So that 10-second penalty, you may have avoided having to race today, basically, right?
Yeah, for sure. We thought that we were done, had a rest day. And then, like 20 minutes later, my coach was like, "Oh, you got a penalty, you're in 6th place." And we're like, "Whoa, what?"
Yeah, the surprise for you. But here comes, running out the beach, Marlene Van der Ey, winning this for Germany, 3:01.15. So Germany will progress on to the quarterfinals. Not quite as quick as the USA, not quite as quick as you guys, hey, from the previous round. I'm sure you had your eye on the clock there.
Yeah.
So Germany are going through as well. You beat them by about 13 seconds from your previous race. You caught your breath now.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm good.
Well done. So you did the first sprint. What's it like going down the beach?
It's a little longer than I expected, but the sand is perfect. Like, it's super packed, so it definitely doesn't hurt your legs and your calves as much. So this is, I would say, the pristine running conditions for beach sprints. Yeah,
it looks like it. It looks a little bit not wet, but as you say, you're not sort of spitting dust out behind your feet as you run.
Exactly. In Saundersfoot last year, it was really moist and your feet kind of just slapped against it and there were shells. I think this is much better.
Amazing. And we're looking at this recap here, the boat entry. So that's the part that you had to play. You had to get in the boat quickly. What's your technique for getting that right?
You know, it's a little chaotic. I don't really think about it that much, but I kind of swing my right leg over and throw myself on the seat and hope my coach moves the seat to catch me and then get my feet in.
So that's really interesting. So your coach is there holding the boat, and they're trying to make sure that the seat's under you when you land.
Yeah, I've been told I'm a little chaotic and hard to deal with getting in. I kind of throw myself and hope I get caught by the seat, but it works out.
Well, you nailed it in the previous round. And next up, we've got coming here, you can see just about to get started, Cyprus and Japan. Cyprus, Mirka Marini and Katerina Kantuna alongside Matsuda Minami and Sugihara Yuka. So what's your approach to this start here? How did you get this right? Because you were looking up at the starting umpire.
Yeah, so I dig my feet into the sand to kind of make a starting block so I can kick off with both feet at the same time. And then definitely always look at the flag, because it seems that the flag goes down just a split second before the sound. So I've definitely learned to stare at the flag, and that helps.
Yeah, that's a good call. Okay, cool. It looks like Cyprus and Japan getting to the boats at the same time. And what's Annalise Hall, your fellow crewmate, doing while you're getting in the seat? Is she taking a stroke, or is she just keeping it flat?
She is sitting ready at the catch, so as soon as I grab the oars, we start together. And she's really, really strong, stronger than me. So she really gets the boat going as I'm taking my first kind of unsteady stroke. So that works out for us.
Amazing. And the fear I think the rest of us have when we watch is, what if your bow's slightly off angle? How do you make sure you're not going to miss that first turning point? Are you just trusting in your boat handlers and your coaches?
I definitely trust my bow seat 100% with our steering, and then I'm looking at our coach, making sure that he's not saying something different from what my bow seat Annalise is telling me. So if he's got his arms moving and Annalise doesn't see, I'll glance back, but usually she definitely has it under control. She's a really amazing bow seat.
That's so good. And then through this point, you've got to make another correction. Can you still rely on your coaches on the shore? Can you still see them, or are you now relying totally on you guys looking over your shoulder?
I can see them, but I would say the turn buoy is big enough that I can kind of glance back and see it anyways. So it's a little better to just trust my bow seat, glance back, and know. And usually we go a little bit more to the side to get a good angle so that we can row hard on starboard and have more of a diagonal going into the turn, which makes it easier.
Gotcha. And now this bit, tell us what's it like, because you lose all the speed. You've just spent 250 meters going out that way.
Yeah.
And now you've done a turn, and you basically lost all your speed.
Yeah, so we try to only take 3 or 4 strokes on starboard while we're checking, and usually that gets us around. We start kind of going diagonal, and really the first few strokes, half slide, really hard on starboard, correcting our point, and that really gets the speed going when we're going at half slide, taking really short strokes, trying to get the stroke rate up to like a 40 on the way back riding those waves.
So it's like a mini start again,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I've heard it likened to like a clean and jerk in the gym. You're basically all the weight of the boat from nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's a much bigger boat than many rowers around the world might be used to on the flat water stuff. There's much more weight in this boat to get up to speed.
Yeah, it hits your forearms for sure. It's definitely a big stroke. But yeah, I would say it's like a start in the heaviest boat ever.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, Cyprus making the best of this race so far, which is per the form book, because they were 8th in the time trial to Japan's 9th. Things can turn around quite quickly. I mean, there were 6 seconds separating them in the time trials. Cyprus making the best of this. Now the landing. Annalise is the one who's got to get out of the boat. What's your approach for tackling this?
I try to go really all out on the force, short strokes, so that I know when she's getting out, I can hear my coach saying out, out, and then I try to take one more hard one to kind of propel her forward. But I trust her on that part. I'm just kind of recovering while I'm making her do the running and the hard part.
Yeah. Well, there goes Cyprus, and I think Japan's nearly did get the wrong buzzer, but I think they corrected for that.
Yeah.
No change in the outcome. So it looks like Cyprus are going through to the next round, and disappointment for Japan, but a great effort for them nonetheless. I mean, it's so exciting watching beach sprint racing. What got you into it?
For me, I live really inland. I live in Ohio in the U.S., so I don't have a lot of beaches near there. And my coach told me in 2021, he was like, we're doing beach sprints trials. And I was like, well, what's that? And he was like, it's rowing.
What's a beach or what's beach sprint trials?
What's beach sprints? And he was like, well, yeah, it's like what you do. It's like a single or a double, but you're going to go in the ocean. It's like surfing. And I was like, okay, sounds way better.
Yeah.
So I went the first year. I didn't do as good as I had hoped. It was my first time.
I am here with Mirka and Katarina of Cyprus, just winning, booking your spot into the next round, into the quarterfinals. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Amazing, actually. It's fantastic feeling. Awesome. I'm so tired.
It is a lot of work. Did you feel confident going into that race?
Yes, I have to say, yeah, I like the weather. So it's a bit challenging, but like, it was a good race. I liked it.
So from here, it looks quite calm out there, but I think it's actually a little bit windier than what it looks. Was it challenging out there?
Very much. It was too challenging for us, but we did it.
Brilliant. Well done. So what are you going to do over the next few minutes and hours to prepare for the next round?
Drink water, rest a bit, and then warm up again.
stuff. Well done. Congratulations. Best of luck in the next round.
Thank you.
So moments away now from the next category. We've had the 3 pre-quarterfinals for the under-19 women's double. Still joined here by the amazing Annalie Duncombe. Annalie, so you're telling me about how you got into beach sprint rowing. What other rowing have you done?
So at first I did a lot of just racing in singles, doubles. I did mostly sculling, and I really loved the single. That was my favorite race, and the double too. So I was really into that, and beach sprints is like that, but on a beach, and I love the beach. So it makes it a little bit more fun, for sure. But now I'm rowing for a new club in Cincinnati Juniors, so I'm doing sweeping as well. Well, now I'm just doing all sweeping, but this is really a fun side hobby to have, for sure.
It's cool, isn't it? And what do you do outside of rowing? You studying?
Yeah. So I finished most of my credits for high school, so right now I'm at a college near me doing some credits for that, and then I'll be rowing at Ohio State next year. So. Okay,
so still firmly based in Ohio. And how long did it take you guys to get here? Did you come here earlier in the week, or how long have you been?
We flew into Pisa and stayed a week in Donnerodico, where Filippi is headquartered, and we did a lot of training on the beach there, and did the clash, I guess, against New Zealand, and I got thrown in New Zealand's relay, so I rowed the single for New Zealand against my double partner Annalise, who was rowing the single for the US, so that was really fun to do.
How fun is that? So you've got a New Zealand strip then, have you? Do you have to get kitted out in the black?
Yeah, I wish I got a uni. I didn't know I was racing for New Zealand until the night before when my coach sent out like lineups and told us the plan, and I was like, New Zealand, what? So luckily I had like black shorts, a black tank top, so it worked out, but if only I got a New Zealand one, that would be dope.
Oh yeah, well you need to go and hit up one of the Kiwis here. Jackie Kittle and Matt Dunham have promised to come and join me in the commentary box for a little bit this weekend. I will collar them and ask for them for one for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Florian? So, well, that's cool. Donnerodico, Pisa, cool places. Have you been before?
No, this is my first time coming to Italy. Really, the only other times I'd left the country were for coastal rowing. I went to Peru, and I think 2021 for the Copa America, and that was like my first international competition. And then I was in Wales last year for Worlds, and now here.
Yeah, it's very different Saundersfoot, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was Peru like?
Peru was incredible. It was like the most fun trip ever. The beach was beautiful. There were like giant jellyfish, and the water was so blue, and it was so much fun. I just loved it there. Wales was a little different. It was freezing cold, and I didn't pack warm enough. We don't really have like USA jackets, so I was just like shaking at the start, but it was still fun.
Yeah, a very different sort of start for you compared to, I saw you dancing on the start line here. I called it out when you stood there dancing. I was like, yes, this is exactly the sort of vibe we want at the beach sprint racing.
They were playing Pump It Up, and I remember when I was little going to Iowa Hawkeye football games with my family, and they would play that, and that was like my song.
Yeah, well, there you go. And it was like it was meant to be. It was the song playing at your race.
Oh, I was feeling pumped.
And then now you're through. Mm-hmm. You have you got the last 8 tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prep for that?
Honestly, like I feel like we're there physically. It's a mental game, so get some good sleep and just stay excited for it, because this is so different from flat water rowing. Like, it's fun. Like I'm in the right headspace. It's good to just have fun and not be so tense, because anything can happen. You just really need to be adaptable with coastal.
Yeah, and with the last 8, it's tricky, isn't it? Because if you do well, you've got your quarterfinal, semi-final, and then your final. Mm-hmm. You're doing 3 races in the course of about 45 to 50 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you train for that in a different way to what you might train for a 2K flat water race? What are you doing to get that sort of interval based?
Yeah. My coach, he's definitely super intense when it comes to training, especially on the erg in the winter, so I've gotten pretty used to it. I don't know if you'd like me sharing his secrets, but I'll tell you anyways. We do in the winter 20 by 500s, 1 minute rest at
20
at or below 2K pace. Ideally, we're doing it right, like trying to stay there for as long as possible. And then Saturdays we do 20 by 250s with lifts during the rest. So definitely really intense interval training on the ergs, and then we do similar stuff on the water. So that definitely helped.
Here we go. We're underway with the next race. It's the first of the races for the PR3 mixed doubles. We got McIntyre Russell and Phoebe Robinson for Australia. Phoebe Robinson making her way down, doing the sprint and getting into the boat first, alongside Muharrem Dakin and Ebru Akinal for Turkey. Good start for Australia here. Quite a powerful combination. And we see there looking across McIntyre Russell, or Russell McIntyre, in the bow seat, looking over to the other crew. How do you prepare for that? Are you looking at the other crew? Are you considering what they're doing?
Okay, so I'm not supposed to, obviously. I've always been
But you
told,
can't help it,
look
can you?
ahead.
It's got to be one of those things.
My partner Annalise always points it out because I'm always looking all around, even when we're doing practices. Like, it's fun during coastal. I'm like looking at the scenery, seeing if I see fish and jellyfish. But yeah, I'm definitely looking to the side, making sure that we have a comfortable lead. I always like to be able to see the back of the person next to me's uni to know that I'm at a good distance ahead for the turn. I always like to try to be ahead at the turn so we can beat them in the waves on the way out and we get that rate even higher. So yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that. I shouldn't, but I do look across.
But it's got to influence your race strategy,
Yeah,
right? So when we look at this here, Turkey are behind Australia. The Aussies will be feeling good about that. But what will Turkey do differently now? So, I mean, you're rarely down in the course of your races, but, you know, if you're down, what are you going to do differently? You're going to give it, you're going to try harder, but you're already in a sprint. So can you even try harder than you're already trying?
I would say I always try to go 100% all out. But yeah, I think definitely you can like unlock another gear when you're racing that you might not have realized that you had when you're seeing that you're behind, and recognizing that in coastal anything can happen, any wave can flip you. It pushes you to just make sure that technically you're doing everything you can. You're putting as much power into the finish, keeping the boat straight, and keeping the same kind of speed. So yeah, I would say like it's harder to catch back up, but depending on waves and how the currents take you, like it's important to know that the race isn't over until it's over.
That's the key thing, isn't it? The race isn't over until it's over. And we see that there's so many technical bits and bobs in a race that you get wrong, and it's either race ending or just adds a mountain of time that just means that the other crew can come through. I mean, this landing is pretty easy as far as a beach landing goes, isn't it?
And even knowing that, like, you see some people when they know they got second jogging, anyone could have gotten a penalty that you didn't see. So it's important to keep going all out because they could have gotten penalties. You're still in it, even if you don't cross the finish line first.
That's the really important point, and that basically happened to you guys, right? You know, the penalty that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
But this win there, Russell McIntyre for Australia, giving it the great guns up the beach, 2:51.6. That's a good fast time. And then Turkey's Muharrem Dakin closing it out. So it's Australia, a great performance from them, progressing on to the next round. Now the penalties. I mean, what's your strategy for that? If you know you've missed a buoy, are you going to keep going or are you going to go back for it?
So I've never missed a whole buoy, but definitely I think it's better to go back for it because you're losing maybe 20 seconds to go turn around and try to get around it rather than a whole minute if you miss the turn buoy. So I think always go back to it. That's my...
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Next race then, we've got Gianfilippo Mirabile and Viola Patrignani for Italy in lane 1 and James Morgan and Melissa Shaw for Great Britain in lane 2. We've got Melissa Shaw doing the sprint alongside Patrignani for Italy. Gianfilippo Mirabile, the bowman in the Italian boat. We see him racing the PR3 at the World Rowing Championships. We saw him racing the PR3 at the World Rowing Championships in Belgrade, Serbia just a couple of weeks ago, making that quick conversion over to the coastal beach sprints. Now, as the wind picks up later on, you're racing tomorrow afternoon, so we're probably expecting a bit more wind tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about what that means for either your race plan or how you navigate? No change, you just do what you're doing, or?
I think for us, we really try to just do what we're doing. We know it works for us, but it's always important to note that, like, in the afternoon, at least in all the beaches I've rode on, the waves definitely pick up. It gets windier. So making sure that you're fixing the little things, leaning back over the waves, making sure you're not getting turned, and understanding how to steer your boat properly, because you don't have to do that as much during these flat races.
Here we go then, the last race of our morning session before some time trials, and then we're into the last 8 races this afternoon. What a sprint. Viola Patrignani, absolutely rapid. Can she get a clean entry? Looking good for Italy here. First couple of strokes to get started. Now, how do you pick? I mean, you don't have much choice, perhaps, your boat handlers, but it's your coach, isn't it? And they've got to give you an almighty shunt. Do you really feel that?
Oh yeah, my boat handler, Chip Norton, his is crazy. Like, he throws the boat forward. We don't even have to really get the boat moving as much. It's already going full speed, and we just kind of go with it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it definitely helps if you have a strong boat handler to push it forward. And then with my other boat handler, Mark, my coach, he's good with picking lanes. He knows what's going on with the wind, and yeah, I trust them completely.
So you picked lane 2.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thinking behind that over lane 1?
You know, there wasn't much thinking from me. I kind of just get in the boat and row it. Yeah, we were told that was going to be a little better with the wind and the way the currents were moving, and it worked out for us, so I'm happy that they picked that one for us.
Gotcha. Well, around the turning point, looks like they've gone a little bit long.
Yeah.
Not as aggressive as some of the other boats in that turn as we've seen. It's quite intimidating, though, I can imagine, when you go in full tilt and then you're just basically catching the big crab.
Yeah, it's definitely a little scary for me still, even like forcing myself to lean out of the boat knowing it's coastal. I'm not going to flip, I'm going to turn the boat, but it's nerve-wracking, especially when you're used to rowing a flat water single and trying not to tip that.
And you're basically trying to make a handbrake turn sort of effect, aren't you? You want and that's why you lean into the blade, is that right? So that you spin the boat out.
Yes, yeah.
Well, this looks like quite a close one here. Italy coming back on Great Britain on the return leg. Let's see what Great Britain's response is to this. They're now pretty much level as they come in towards the landing. And you can see some rolling waves coming in. And Annalie, what are you thinking about those? Are you trying to catch them and surf them, or are they a bit of an afterthought?
It depends on how big the waves are, how the wind's moving, where we are, definitely. If they're big waves and we know that they'll turn us if we're sideways, definitely trying to fix your angle going into it so you can surf the wave on the way back. But if they're pretty flat like this, we try to just keep a straight point, I think.
Gotcha. So it's mostly about angle rather than getting any speed advantage. Oh,
yeah.
And then the runs coming here from Melissa Short again, out of the stroke seat, making her way up the beach. I think she might be on for the win here. We can't see the oh, there's the Italian. We've got the first dive to the buzzer. Who's going to make it? Great Britain by split seconds. What a great conclusion that was. Both Melissa Short, Viola Patrignani closed that gap down. She's so quick.
That was awesome.
What a cool race that was. Now, you and Annalise Hall, you both do a segment of the sprint. Here in the PR3 event, we had Melissa and Viola doing the sprint twice. Do you do any sprint training?
Yeah, we do a lot of beach sprint workouts, especially when we're getting close to the race or any race that we do trials too. Mark, my coach, has us doing sprints on the sand, practicing, getting into the water, running through the sand. I don't do as much sprint training as I should, like on land. But yeah, definitely running in the sand. Last year, we did like an hour of running in the sand. It killed my calves.
I bet it did. We're going to have a quick interview on the beach there with the winner of the last race.
Shot of Great Britain. Melissa, that was the tightest race we've seen so far today. Congratulations. You must be so excited to be in the A final.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Obviously, it's the first time we've had this event before, so to make the first ever A final is just brilliant.
Amazing work. It was so tight on that sprint. You just had to go for it. How are the legs feeling right now?
Yeah, they're a bit tired, but I knew it was close when we came into the beach, so I was just trying to get up here as fast as I could.
What are you thinking about in those moments? Is there anything going through your head, or are you just trying to put every little bit of energy into that sprint?
Yeah, I'm just fixated on running as fast as I can and hitting that buzzer.
Well, congratulations. We can't wait to see you in the A final.
Thank you.
Well, what a great race there for the pre-quarterfinals for the PR3 Mixed Double Sculls. We've had an amazing day of racing here so far. It's day 2 of the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Italy. I'm here, Peter O'Hanlon, in the commentary box, joined by Annalie Duncan, who absolutely smashed her pre-quarterfinal race. Annalie, I'm still so pleased to have seen your race. I mean, you told us earlier that you had a penalty that knocked you basically out of the leading 5 that would have seen you progress directly through to the last day. You smashed your pre-quarterfinal race. Now you're going on to the last 8, which we can look forward to tomorrow afternoon, which means you've got the rest of the day off. What are you planning to do this afternoon?
Definitely go to lunch, get some pasta in me. I cannot get enough pasta. It's amazing here. But yeah, and then get off my feet, rest. Yeah.
Yeah, important, right? You've got to get the nutrition right. You've got a huge hour's worth of racing, basically, tomorrow to prep for. And it's been a real pleasure having you in the commentary box. Thank you for coming to join me. We've had a huge morning. We've had the mixed doubles, the under-19 men's doubles, under-19 women's doubles, and the PR3 Mixed Double Sculls. We've got some time trials coming up next, but we will be back with you with the live broadcast from 2 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm going to say thank you again, Annalie Duncan, for joining us here. It's been great to hear from you.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up with everybody else. Thank you. And thanks everybody tuning in all around the world. We'll be back with you shortly before 2 o'clock local time here in Italy. But in a moment, just before we do go, we've got some highlights coming up for everybody to enjoy. You can see that the amazing volunteers here in Barletta from some of the local schools and communities have come down to shift the boats around because we've got time trials up next, which means that we've got to move all of the doubles out of the way because we've got the men's solo time trials, quite a lot. We've got places from 9th through to 35 racing for progression onto the next round, and then the women's solo time trials until the lunch break before we get onto racing from 2 o'clock this afternoon. So loads still to look forward to from 2. Here are some highlights from this morning's racing though.